Hi and welcome everyone. Nice to see so many attendees. Please keep your mics muted during the presentation. Ask questions in the Q&A and we will try to address all Q&As. If not during the session, then separately as a follow-up. If time allows it, come off mute during the Q&A and let's talk there. This session is recorded, so if you do not want to be recorded, feel free to leave. With that said, I leave the stage with you, David.
Thank you. Everyone, welcome and thanks for attending the Modern Endpoint Management Summit 2022. This session is going to be focused on OSD Cloud. It's a Windows 11 Autopilot ready solution for doing OSD with zero infrastructure. I'm David Segura. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Cloud and Data Center Management. The moderator today is Thomas. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Thomas. I'm an MVP and a technology architect. I think that's the short bits and bytes I'm allowed here.
And I want to thank Software Central for being the sponsor for this session. We're going to have a quick demo, a quick presentation from them after my session before Q&A. So we've got a really short but detail-filled agenda. I'm going to start with an OSD Cloud Recap, what it is and how it works. I'm going to tell you how to get your WinPE in the cloud so you can use it anywhere. And we're going to look at some PowerShell cloud scripting examples so you can more or less create a task sequence out of OSD Cloud. So OSD Cloud Recap, what it is and how it works. It's a Cloud OS deployment solution using PowerShell, and it starts in WinPE. Using it, you're able to deploy 8 operating systems, Windows 10, Windows 11, and I calculate 8 because of the different versions. It supports 38 different languages and over 1,300 driver packs from Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Microsoft Surface. Any other device that's 64-bit compatible in UEFI will get drivers from Microsoft Catalog. So it truly does support every single device that supports Windows 10 and 11, 64-bit. So the way it looks is when PE starts, you have, there are some initialization strings that are run as part of WinPE. And OSD Cloud is simply run from a command line in PowerShell and WinPE using start OSD Cloud. This is the original design of OSD Cloud, a command line solution. There's also a GUI, a front end for OSD Cloud, which kind of helps you make your selections, but every one of these selections can be done in the command line. So you can choose which way and how you want to deploy this. So what I want to do is let's take a quick demo of OSD Cloud in WinPE. And this is what WinPE looks like. I'm going to maximize my display so everyone can see what I'm looking at in WinPE. And if we look at the startup options, we'll see that it's going to initialize WinPE. There is wireless support as part of OSD Cloud if you're building your WinPE solution using Windows RE, Windows Recovery Environment. It will update the OSD PowerShell module. OSD Cloud is a series of functions contained within the OSD PowerShell module. And it will also install some Azure modules for 80 Azure accounts, Key Vault, and storage. And so once this is initialized, I can start OSD Cloud by simply typing in start OSD Cloud, and I can give it parameters, for example, manufacturer, product, and these are all the options that we saw in the GUI. If I don't give it any parameters, it's going to simply start and prompt me and tell me ask me for information that it needs. Do I want to deploy Windows 11 or Windows 10? And what edition? For most of our purposes, usually in a corporate environment, we're going to select Enterprise, and then we get our series of 38 different languages. For me, I typically choose English US. And once that information is given, it determines a proper link to download the ESD file that I need from Microsoft. So, and that depends on whatever selections I've made. If I take a closer look, I'll see that I've got an option for autopilot configuration, which I didn't have a JSON file stored on my ISO on this VM, so we're going to skip that. It's going to automatically partition my drives, and then once that's done, it's going to proceed to create my new partitions and then download the ESD from Microsoft. One thing about pulling the ESD from Microsoft is it's very fast. I'm connected to my home network over wireless, which is in the other room. And if I look at the total time here, I can see that I will have this file downloaded under 2 minutes. So very fast deployment solution if you have a good internet connection. If this were not a virtual machine, if I were doing this installation from a Dell or Lenovo or HP or Surface, then a driver pack would be matched that is required for my system, and then those would be applied automatically. So it truly is universal. It pulls everything it needs from the cloud, and there's nothing else that I need to do here. 22 seconds, and once this is done, it's going to expand the ESD. Since I selected Enterprise, it's going to pick the appropriate image index, and next thing I know, this will be completely done. This process will take less than 10 minutes in WinPE, and when I'm done, I should reboot and end up in out-of-box experience. And so this makes it very suitable, very perfect for any autopilot situation, because it is a clean image from Microsoft. It is non-customized. You don't get all the fluff you do from other manufacturers. It's also a great disaster recovery solution. And more importantly, if you support hundreds of different models, if you support in your organization a bring your own device, this truly will be able to image every device that you have in your environment to Windows 10 or Windows 11. So we can see in the background this WinPE is expanding, and we're just going to let this continue. We'll minimize that. And in a nutshell, that's exactly how OSD Cloud works. The only thing you need to do as part of OSD Cloud is to create a WinPE. WinPE is part of the module that is created when you use OSD Cloud. You have to configure a template and a workspace, and so I've already pre-made my templates, and of course I need admin rights. So let's try this again. There we go. And when I run this command, which is part of the OSD module, get OSD Cloud template, it should return a path to the template that I'm using. And I'm going to go ahead and kill this VM so it doesn't continue using my CPU. Now, if I look in this directory here, I am going to find that I have got quite a few templates that I've made as part of my testing. I have got a private, a public, and I've got several different WinPE medias that are made from different OSs. And I'll go ahead and change that. And I will change it to a public template. And I want to create a new workspace and a workspace is simply a copy of the template, and the template is basically built from the ADK. And if I look in this template, and I'm going to keep this really high level, if I look in here, it's got a copy of some ISOs and media, which I can then customize and add drivers if I want to. And the way I would do that is I can do something called Cloud Driver. And what Cloud Driver does, it's going to put in WinPE drivers for all of these systems. And that's typically what I work with. I'll simply do this, and it's going to mount the boot WIM, and it will download all of those drivers from every single vendor that's needed automatically, and allow me to now have a boot image which will boot just about any device. Now, I mentioned what we want to focus on is getting this ISO that gets created after this process is complete into the cloud. And the way that works is I'll simply take the ISO that gets created, and I can put it anywhere I want. What I've ended up doing is putting it in Azure storage. And in Azure storage, I keep a couple different containers. For example, this container is completely public. There is no authentication in it at all. And if I look at this, I'll have a URL where I can now access and download my URL from the cloud. And this is important because once I get this URL in the cloud, which I'll open another PowerShell session to demonstrate. And let's go ahead and assign a variable to this URL. And it's a very lengthy URL, but I've started writing some OSD Cloud functions that will use ISO files that are saved on the internet. For example, I can create a new OSD Cloud workspace from ISO file. No, we don't want that. From ISO URL, and then I can give it this URL. So now, when I created OSD Cloud, typically I'll create a WinPE, and in my organization, we'll put those ISOs on servers in our environment. But if we move them to the cloud, this is the only thing I need to provide everyone in my corporation and say, this is your WinPE, this is where you get it. And I can update it whenever I want, and they can access it whenever they want. The other thing about this is if I'm working at home and I need to image a machine from home, and I'm going to obviously need a USB drive because I'm going to have to boot up. And you see I've got a blank USB drive here. I could actually go to use a new function called new OSD Cloud USB. And using the same parameters, I have a from ISO URL. And I can give it this public URL. Let me run this first. Public ISO. And so this very simple method here will download the ISO from my Azure in the cloud, and it's going to allow me to create a USB drive from it. So now I can boot whatever device I need to image from home, pulling my corporate ISO, and then image the device fully from the cloud. So the important part here is really to make this ISO known and to get it to where you can reach it. And you'll see this is a complete. Let's take a look at what I have in this PC. I have a WinPE partition that exists in my USB drive. If I want to open up disk management, I can see that a little better here, my disk 2. And the WinPE partition is a 2 gig partition that sits at the end of this 256 gig drive. But now I'm able to take this, put it on a different device, and image it at will. So by simply putting the ISO in the cloud, I can now image anything from anywhere at any time. So one issue that we have is not a lot of companies are going to be okay with putting this ISO in the cloud and keeping it public. So when we create these ISOs, it's important to strip out any, make sure there's no autopilot configuration and everything like that. Let me go back here to my storage account, and we'll see that I've also created a private container. And in this private container, what I have is I've got the ISO, and I've also got a WIM for LTSC 2021. And if I come in here, and if I look at my URL that it gives me, I can put it in PowerShell. And I can invoke REST method and have a look at this URL that it's given me. And since it's in a private Azure storage, I'm going to get an error message. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and generate a SAS token so I can access this. And I'll just generate a SAS that's going to be good for, I don't know, an hour. Let's see if I can do this. I think this is on Azure's end, not mine. There we go. So the SAS token I'm going to generate is good for today, and it looks like it's good for a few hours. I want read permission, and we'll make it HTTPS. And when I generate this, it's going to give me a SAS token, but it's also going to give me a URL, a full URL that I can now copy and show you here. It's quite lengthy. And it has everything I need to connect. So now I can do my invoke REST method. and we can see that I didn't get an error message this time. If I want to change this to invoke web request, we'll do the same method ahead because I don't want to download it. We'll see that it returns a status code 200. So if I want, I can go ahead and use SAS tokens to allow me access to this custom image, just like I could if I needed a custom WIM. So this is one method to allow me to get to this URL. So that's a good method. And at MMS, I'll be presenting a solution on how we can take this token and convert it to a key vault in order to access it in OSD Cloud. That solution's not entirely ready, but it is coming. So just a heads up. So finally, the biggest point I wanted to talk about is cloud scripting. And what's important about cloud scripting is you can take OSD Cloud and you can wrap it in a PowerShell script so you can provide all the parameters you need for deployment. And I'll show you what one of these scripts will look like. So one good example is what I call the Sandbox. Oops. I'll make this a little bigger. And what the Sandbox does is it will take any WinPE and it will make sure that it has all the requirements for OSD Cloud to run. And an example of where that's important is OSD Cloud does use its own ISO, it does use its own WinPE, but there are solutions where you can, if you use MDT or if you use configman boot image, you may have PowerShell added to your WinPE. And as long as you've got a WinPE with PowerShell, you can run OSD Cloud. And I'll show you how that works. So on an MDT boot image, I'm going to press F8 to open WinPE. And I'll go ahead and make this a little larger so you can see it. And this sandbox that I've written sits at this URL, sandbox.osdcloud.com. And I can take this and I can put it into a web browser, like so. And what it's going to do, it's a simple redirect that redirects this file to GitHub, to the raw content. So this is a PowerShell script that's saved in GitHub. And to execute it, I can simply type in this command. Well, let's start with invoke REST method. And what this will do, this should use invoke REST method to get this URL. And you can see that I can access it. It's there. And if I want to execute it, I'm going to simply put the invoke REST method command in parentheses, so it processes this first. And now I'm simply going to invoke expression on the REST method script of sandbox.osdcloud.com. And if you look here, you'll see what it's doing. It's going to go ahead and give me all the required modules and settings that I need to run OSD Cloud. So in the end, what I'm going to have is be able to run OSD Cloud on my MDT boot image as long as it's got PowerShell. So when we talk about OSD Cloud Anywhere, you can run it on your own WinPE. You don't need to use a customized version. And it's this cloud script that makes it truly possible. And once this is done, I should be able to start PowerShell. Here it is. It's telling me to start a new PowerShell session. Type in start PowerShell, and then here we go. Now this command I keep using, set disres, this is part of the OSD PowerShell module that I wrote, and this allows me to change the screen resolution. And I use this quite frequently in WinPE. So, and now you'll see that this MDT boot image will now work with OSD Cloud. So the first and best example I can give you of writing a cloud script is the Sandbox. And the Sandbox, if we look at it, it has a WinPE section. If system drive equals X, it's going to perform these commands. But if you look further, there's also a Sandbox for out-of-box experience that will run if I run this Sandbox in OOBE. So let me pull up a device on OOBE. I'll make a checkpoint real quick so I don't mess anything up. And an out-of-box experience, normally we get here so we can do Autopilot join. If this device isn't registered in Autopilot, which it's a new VM, so clearly it's not going to be, there's a lot of prerequisites that I need to do to get this joined for Autopilot. Let me minimize these to reduce the noise. So what I'll go ahead and do is just press Shift F10. And normally what I would have to do is set the PowerShell execution policy. I would have to install get Windows Autopilot info script so I can register this device. But because of this device, because of the cloud script that I have, I can simply run the same command. And this is the same command I ran in WinPE. It's formatted a little different. IEX is short for invoke expression. IRM is short for invoke rest method. But what this is going to do, it's written to where when the script starts, it looks and it's able to tell, okay, this is not in WinPE, so we don't want to image a computer. We're an out-of-box experience. And you'll see this Sandbox is now going to tell me to verify my display resolution and scale is set properly. So this gives me a great opportunity to change the scale so I can present this. And I'm just going to drag this over here. And once I close this, I'm being prompted again for another window. And this is saying verify the language, region, and keyboard are set. So many times in my org, we've deployed an image for Autopilot, a clean image, and we may need to change the keyboard because a non-US keyboard is plugged in. And by having this in a cloud script, I'm able to do this very easily in out-of-box experience without having to remember which commands I need to run. And finally, the last thing I'm popping up here is verify the date and time is set properly, including the time zone. And this really does matter because if your date and time are not set properly, if you're trying to autopilot join, certificates may fail because they're not going to be the proper time. I'm in the central time zone, so I'm going to set that. And you'll see this says it's 8:08 a.m., which it isn't. I'm able to synchronize my clock here. So now that my time zone is set, I am ready to proceed on to and register this device in Autopilot. And so what this Sandbox, this cloud script is now going to do, it sets my execution policy. It's going to put what it needs in a PowerShell profile. It's going to trust PowerShell Gallery and then install a script for get Windows Autopilot info so I can register this device. So at the end of this sandbox, when it's done, I should be completely ready to register this device 100% in Autopilot. And this took one command line. And that's what's so great about this. And I'll let this finish. You see get Autopilot info is coming down. Fix that. And so you can run it in WinPE. You can run it in out-of-box experience. And you can also create your own. And when I say create your own, one example here is what I call company. And in this example here, I've told it to start up. This is just like Sandbox, but it's called Company Demo. I've told it to start imaging this device with OSD Cloud as Windows 10. I've given it the build, the edition, the license, and I tell it to restart when complete. So everything I need to get OSD Cloud running is in this script here. In the case of out-of-box experience, I've written something a little more geared towards Autopilot. And what this is going to do, this is going to register this device in Autopilot with a specific group tag called Enterprise. And it's also going to remove some Apex programs that I don't need. It's going to install RSAT, NetFX, update drivers, update Windows, and update Defender. And then it's going to restart. And it's going to do all of this because I've written it in the script. And the way this works is I simply run a similar command, although this URL is different. And I can get to it here by running company demo. And it's going to prompt me. This is very similar to the Sandbox where I set my display resolution. I can come in here, I can change and install different keyboard language. And now it's going to ask me to verify my time, which I've already done. And now we're going to watch what happens next. Right now it's checking to make sure it's got all the requirements, which we've already run in the first Sandbox demonstration. And now I'm being prompted to sign into Microsoft. Now what's happening here is, if you recall, I had told it to register in Autopilot using a specific group tag. And so now it's prompting me for credentials in order to do that. Now, I didn't give it a tenant. I simply told it group tag Enterprise and to assign it. So depending on what I sign in, it's going to be that tenant that I sign in as. And if I wait, if I do nothing, we're going to see it's launched this process in a new window. And there it is. It's uninstalled Xbox and Zune. It's doing exactly what I've told it to do to configure this device for my environment before I even register the device in Autopilot. And what's neat about this is there's also a check to see if this device is registered already. If it already has an Autopilot profile, it's going to skip the prompt. It won't let me join Autopilot again. But this is a very easy way for me to configure all of my devices and ensure they're all configured the same. And one thing I've noticed is, since we've started testing this where we set the time properly and synchronize it, our Autopilot join failures have gone down to, I'd say, probably within 2%. So it's something to consider if you're looking into customizing this. And again, this is run with one command line. And then, of course, I have to authenticate to join this device. but there isn't a method of registering a device in out of box and doing all this configuration that is easier. This is it. And this also ensures consistency and compliance. I'm now seeing that RSAT is being joined. If we go back to the script, after RSAT, this is going to install NetFX, and it's going to completely update my device. And because there is a wait process command, it will not reboot until my Autopilot is completely registered. So there is a process wait happening here. So I can let this continue. But we can also look at company demo in WinPE while this is running. To give you another example of the same script. And in this case, I'm in WinPE, system drive is X. Change the resolution a little. And I can do the same command, but since I'm already in PowerShell, I don't have to type in PowerShell. I can do invoke expression IRM like that. This is the same command I ran in out-of-box experience. But like I mentioned, this is set up and geared to imaging my device specifically the way my company requires it in this particular demo. It's installing, updating the module, and then it should go ahead and start imaging this device automatically. Okay, I already had the latest version. Now this is one prompt that it's not doing automatically. It selected everything else for me except my language. And let's do French. Let's do selection 14. And there it is. That's the only thing I had to do, pick a language. So you can customize this script to work truly for any device globally by putting this script in the cloud right here. And we'll let this continue, bounce back to the presentation and see where we're at. Well, it looks like that was the biggest chunk of what I wanted to show. I'll let these continue, and I'm actually going to turn this over to our sponsor to have a word with us, and then we'll be open for some Q&A after I'm done.
So thank you, David. Very cool stuff. So I should introduce myself. Axel Wiesmann from Germany, and here for Software Central. We are really happy to sponsoring the summit and to see that cool stuff also for OSD Cloud. And yeah, I have now a little time to present our solution, which I'm now presenting my screen, hopefully. So now you should see my screen. David, can you approve that?
Yes, I can see it.
So Software Central is the web-based solution for config manager and Intune. And yeah, we created a cool solution to improve your daily tasks, to optimize your task, and also to reduce your effort in specific areas. What does it mean? Basically, with config manager Intune, to deploy an application to a target client, you need often to create a collection, to assign or to add the agent or the client to the collection, assign the application, and so on and so on. And we simplified that way because we have here created a nice web view where you can simply select your computer or user. If you have user-based deployment, search for the device or search for the username. Also, that is possible. And then you have here on the menu, you can see that you have here, for example, my test device. And then you have the opportunity and the possibility to assign software directly. You will also see what is currently assigned to the client. You can also look in the log files directly here from the web-based view. So you can directly look in the complete log files from Config Manager, or also if you're using PowerShell App Deployment Toolkit as a framework for packaging, you can also look directly in the native or the default log entries and look directly in the log files to help or to troubleshoot the applications. Then you have also the possibility to run the installation from the console. What does it mean? You can also deploy software available for the end users so that they can do that themselves in the self-service. But often you have some breaks or some meetings, and you want to provide the application in the background for the user. And yeah, you have then here the possibility to click the Insta button from the solution. If you want also deploy new software, you have here a cool menu where you can simply select all your related applications you want to deploy. It will create a list on the right-hand side where you can see which applications were installed as a goal or as a job. But you can also add, remove in one step. So that means we can here assign an installation or removal in one view with few clicks. And then if you click your complete list, you can say run or add and remove software, and Software Central will generate the complete stuff in the back end. You have then also the possibility to lease software. That means it will install it for 1 month. For example, if you're in a short project to have a clean installation and a clean environment also. When you have, for example, some misclicks or you have selected the wrong application, you can simply click on that and it will remove from the target list. Then when you run, what does it do? You have a short deployment monitor. It will run the necessary tasks to add them in the collections, to check up if the client is running, and also to enforce the cycles for installation. Then it will also put it automated in the live deployment monitor, where you can see instant what is happening on the client, and have more fun to have a daily task about that. What we also provide is to simplify staging for new devices. What does it mean? One of the traditional ways to integrate a new PC or to stage a new PC with Config Manager is to simply add the host name and the MAC address and then select the task sequence. And that is also possible with Software Central, but in some better ways. So that means you can also here provide some name generations, and the tool will automatically generate the next available name generation or name for you. And on the next page, you can add multiple variables for your task sequence. So today, everybody should use variables in their task sequence to have a dynamic, and modern way. And you have here the possibility to add text boxes or drop-down menus for selecting variables. The big point here is also you don't need to type the variables with key and name in it anymore. You can simply select the value and then it go forward. But for example, if your help desk or your first line is not so familiar with all the technique here, you can also provide them deep templates. What does it mean? It will pre-select or disable some values and will also generate some required values that the help desk needs to select. If you have also Intune in place or tenant attached, you have also here the possibility to upload your your devices to Windows Autopilot to go forward and use more and more cloud stuff, also OSD Cloud, which is also looking very cool. And here you have the possibility that you can simply select your currently config manager device and select, for example, group text for dynamic assignments. Also here is an Azure AD group. You can specify existing group text, but you can also create new group text directly during the import. All of that, we provide also role-based access. What does it mean? If you start the application here, you have also the possibility to define different type of roles with limited views, for example. So, for example, only import devices or some AD tasks, which is also possible to provide as in a limit view. That is also based for Azure AD groups or normal AD groups. And yeah, you can simplify to onboard and empower your complete first line and support desk to work together. We also provide directly migration to Intune. That means all your currently configured or prepared applications, you can simply click to migrate here to Intune to create a Win file. And then it will automatically upload the file to Intune, and then you can start to apply software. When you use also Intune, you have here under software where we can deploy software to Windows 10 client. You can also in the same area deploy directly with the same overview, with the same durings applications to mobile devices such as Android or iOS devices. It will automatically change the view of available software to all Android or iOS-based applications, and you have the same experience here. Select what you want to install or unselect if you are ready for that or if you have the rights for that, and simply click the same way. Also, when you currently have tenant attached, and you are switching your workloads to Intune, you have here also the possibility to change your assignment with applications directly from in the same view from config manager based applications to Intune based applications in one view. And here it's up to you what you currently want to use. At the moment we are here in the staging mode that we can see both objects. But yeah, over that, you can also deploy then directly in the same view applications directly through Intune and have more fun in the daily tasks. We also then provide collection management, variables, templates. We also provide packaging configurations, package migrations, reinstall devices or multiple devices, cloning, and all more AD stuff. Yeah, and I will invite you to our exhibit room if you want to see more or if you want to have more questions. We are there for you to answer any questions. We are ready also to present some demos. And yeah, feel free to ask anything what you want about Software Central. And yeah, we are really happy to sponsoring here the summit. It makes a lot of fun. And yeah, I don't need more time and open or give to Thomas to open the Q&A session.
Thank you, Axel. So David, let's open up the Q&A. So I see there's a question in regards to the usage and support of a custom Vim or ESD file.
Yes. So what I've done is I've answered 2 questions in Q&A already, and I wanted to handle this. In the previous example that I gave, we had a SAS token attached to this WIM for LTSC that I put in the cloud. And start OSD Cloud will take a image file URL parameter. And if I run this script, and I'm going to cancel that, it won't actually run in full OS. It is designed to work in WinPE. But as you see here, I gave it the SASWim file with my URL and my SAS token. If you don't have it secured, if you have it just on an open connection, obviously that will work too. But you can see it shows my custom Windows image here with my SAS token in full. It's identified a driver pack that it needs to download, but it has used my URL, whatever URL I give it, I can tell it this is the WIM to use. So that should answer that question, but I wouldn't do that. It's going to be hard to type in. The second question had to do with Key Vault. Can you use Key Vault? Sure. I'm going to take that same SASWim file, and there's a function that I've written in the OSD PowerShell module called convert to PS Key Vault secret. And you'll see I've given it a vault name and a name for my Key Vault secret. And I'm just going to run this. Oh, hang on a second. Let me cancel that. And I have to provide a URI or a file, a string, or clipboard. And I actually like using clipboard because I can take this, Control-C, copy it, and now I can simply run this command. And there it is. Now, I've already previously authenticated to Azure, but I see I have my secret. And let's see if I can get this secret and see what it looks like. So this is an Azure command. This is not one of my commands. And yeah, I can get to it. And if I want to read it, I can simply add the as plain text. There it is here. And if I want to get creative, I can simply do image file URL parameter. Bingo. Now, this is in my OS. Let's take a look at that in WinPE. Now, because OSD Cloud is now loading all my modules for Key Vault and storage that I need, I can simply do the same command. And the command I want to run is, there's another one I've written. Let's try this. Get PS Cloud script is in my PowerShell module. And where did I put this? OSD Cloud Demo. SASWim file. And I do have to authenticate using device code, device logon. And the reason why is I can't launch a URL in WinPE. So this is the only method that I can log in WinPE, but it works. We'll give it a second. Bingo. I'll make this a little larger so you guys can see it. But you see it returned the full URL here. So again, I can wrap it give me just a second. Like this. I won't have to authenticate again. There's my LTSC with my token. And let's just see what happens. All right, let me clear my disk here. In 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, maybe 5, I'll have this private WIM saved on Azure storage, protected by a SAS token, downloaded, and I'll have my device imaged.
Awesome.
That should answer that question.
I guess we have reached the end.
Okay.
At least for the next room to open up. So thanks for an awesome session, David, Axel. The recording will be made available shortly. So see you in the next upcoming sessions and have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.